The story of Hollywood does not begin with spotlights, red carpets, or towering studios. It begins quietly, beneath the warm California sun, in a small farming village at the edge of Los Angeles. The year was 1910. Back then, Hollywood was little more than dusty roads, citrus groves, and scattered houses resting beneath the Santa Monica Mountains. There were no sound stages, no backlights, no signs that this quiet settlement would one day become the beating heart of the global film industry. Yet history was about to unfold here. A small film crew from the Biograph Company arrived from New York, led by a determined young director named D.W. Griffith. They were not chasing fame, nor were they trying to create a legend. They were simply looking for sunlight, open landscapes, and a place far away from the harsh winters of the East Coast. Their production was modest, a silent short film titled In Old California. Only 17 minutes long, the story told a romantic tale set during California's Spanish colonial past, complete with heroes, villains, and the sweeping spirit of the frontier. What no one realized at the time was that this simple production would become a milestone in cinema history. In Old California would later be remembered as the very first motion picture ever filmed in Hollywood. At the time, however, it was just another experiment in the rapidly evolving world of filmmaking. The early film industry was still young and restless. Most American filmmakers worked on the East Coast, especially in New York and New Jersey. But there was a problem. Winters were long and gloomy, daylight was unpredictable, and production was often interrupted by rain, clouds, and freezing temperatures. California offered something revolutionary for filmmakers: reliable sunshine. In Southern California, the sun shone nearly every day of the year. The light was bright and consistent, perfect for the primitive cameras of the era, which required enormous amounts of natural illumination. There were also mountains, deserts, beaches, farms, and small towns all within a short distance. In a single day, filmmakers could shoot scenes that looked like Mexico, Spain, the Wild West, or the Mediterranean. But sunshine and scenery were only part of the story. Another powerful force quietly pushed filmmakers westward. At the time, motion picture technology was heavily controlled by powerful patent holders in the eastern United States. Independent filmmakers often found themselves fighting legal battles over cameras, film stock, and equipment. California offered distance. 3,000 miles away from the patent enforcers of the East Coast, filmmakers discovered a kind of creative frontier. If legal troubles appeared, the open border with Mexico was only a short journey south.
Good. We're clear.
And just like the pioneers of earlier centuries, filmmakers came seeking freedom. So, when D.W. Griffith and the Biograph Company filmed in Old California in that quiet village in 1910, they unknowingly planted the first seed of an industry that would soon transform the world. Within a few short years, production companies began to follow the sunlight west. Small film crews became permanent studios. Wooden sets turned into vast backlights. The little farming community named Hollywood slowly transformed into a dream factory. D.W. Griffith himself would go on to become one of the most influential directors in early cinema, pioneering techniques of storytelling that helped shape the language of film. But it all began with a short, silent movie, filmed under an open sky, in a village that had no idea it was about to become legendary. Today, more than a century later, Hollywood is synonymous with cinema.
Hollywood, a symbol of storytelling and imagination. The magic of the movies, where dreams come alive. A beacon of creativity and wonder.
And at the very beginning of that story stands a humble film from 1910. A 17-minute silent short called In Old California. Long before Hollywood became a global symbol of cinema, before towering studios, flashing marquees, and the glow of premiere nights, it was simply a quiet village tucked beneath the California sun. The year was 1910. At the edge of Los Angeles, among dusty roads and orange groves, a small film crew arrived carrying cameras, costumes, and an idea. They were part of the Biograph Company, and their director, a rising storyteller named D.W. Griffith, had come west in search of light, space, and possibility. What they found in this peaceful village called Hollywood would quietly change the course of film history. The story itself reached back in time, set in the early 19th century when California was still part of the Spanish frontier. It was a historical drama of romance, rivalry, and honor, capturing the spirit of a distant era with sweeping emotion and theatrical storytelling. But the real drama was happening behind the camera. Griffith's crew set up their equipment in the open air of the village, filming scenes in the landscape around what is today remembered near the site of the Forbidden City restaurant. At the time, no one imagined this quiet location would someday become the center of the global film industry. For the filmmakers, it was simply a practical place to work: bright sunshine, beautiful scenery, and a peaceful environment far from the crowded studios of the East Coast. The film itself ran only 17 minutes. A brief flicker of images projected onto silent screens. Yet history would remember it differently. In Old California would later be recognized as the first motion picture ever filmed in Hollywood. It was not a grand announcement or a carefully planned milestone. It was simply the first spark. And sparks have a way of becoming fire. In the years that followed, filmmakers began arriving in greater numbers. The sunshine, open landscapes, and creative freedom of Southern California proved irresistible. Small productions turned into growing studios, and the sleepy village slowly transformed into the motion picture capital of the world. Just 4 years later, in 1914, Hollywood would take another major step forward when The Squaw Man was produced there, widely regarded as the first full-length feature film made in Hollywood. The industry was growing rapidly, and Hollywood was becoming its stage. But the story of In Old California did not end with its early success. Like many silent films of that era, the fragile reels eventually disappeared. Over time, the film was believed to be lost, another forgotten piece of cinema's earliest history. For decades, it existed only in records and memories. Then, nearly a century later, something remarkable happened. In the early 2000s, a surviving print of the film was rediscovered, bringing the long-lost milestone back to life. Once again, audiences could witness the humble production that unknowingly began Hollywood's cinematic journey. Today, when we look at Hollywood, the lights, the legends, the global influence, it's hard to imagine it all began with a simple silent film made in a quiet village. No grand studios, no fanfare, just a camera, a story, and the California sun. In Old California was more than a film. It was the first chapter in the story of Hollywood. The cameras of the 1910 era were primitive machines. Early film stock was slow and insensitive, meaning it required enormous amounts of light just to capture a usable image. Artificial lighting was weak and unreliable, offering little help to filmmakers trying to bring their stories to life. Sunlight was not just helpful. It was the only real solution. This is why early movie studios often looked nothing like the soundproof buildings we know today. Many were built almost entirely of glass, giant skylights designed to flood the sets with daylight. Some productions skipped buildings altogether, filming on open-air stages where the sun itself served as the main source of illumination. One of the earliest film studios in America, Thomas Edison's famous Black Maria in New Jersey, looked more like a strange industrial shed than a movie studio. Covered in tar paper, the building even had a rotating roof so it could follow the movement of the sun across the sky. Every beam of light mattered. The cameras themselves were equally demanding. They were massive, heavy machines mounted on sturdy tripods. Instead of motors, they relied on operators who hand-cranked the film through the mechanism, turning a handle carefully and consistently to keep the motion smooth. There was no sound recording. Actors performed their scenes in complete silence while the camera captured only movement and expression. Dialogue and music would later be provided by live musicians and title cards when the film was shown in theaters. Everything about early filmmaking required patience, creativity, and improvisation. Sets were simple, equipment was limited, and every production depended on the cooperation of the weather. So, when Griffith's crew filmed in Old California beneath the bright sky of that quiet village in 1910, they were doing more than making a short silent film. They were discovering the perfect home for the motion picture industry, a place where the sun itself helped power the birth of Hollywood. In those earliest days of cinema, long before Hollywood created global icons and red carpet legends, actors themselves were almost invisible to the public. They were performers, but not yet stars. Most of the people appearing on early film screens came from the world of live entertainment. Many were veterans of traveling theater companies, accustomed to dramatic gestures and powerful stage presence. Others arrived from the lively circuits of vaudeville, where comedians, singers, dancers, and novelty performers entertained crowds night after night. Some even came from the circus, acrobats, riders, and performers skilled in physical storytelling. These artists already knew how to captivate an audience, even without words, which made them perfect for the silent screen. But in those early years, something surprising happened. Studios deliberately kept their actors anonymous. Unlike today, film companies rarely credited performers by name. Producers feared that if audiences learned who the actors were, those performers might become too popular and begin demanding higher salaries. So, the faces were familiar, but the names were hidden. Audiences would watch the same performers appear again and again in different films, recognizing him instantly, yet never knowing who they were. This mysterious system couldn't last forever. One of the earliest performers to break through this anonymity was a young actress named Florence Lawrence. Moviegoers began recognizing her face across multiple productions, and curiosity grew. Who was she? What was her name? Eventually, the public demand became impossible to ignore. Florence Lawrence became one of the first true movie stars, her fame driven not by studio publicity, but by the audiences themselves. It was a turning point. For the first time, the people on the screen were no longer anonymous performers. They were personalities, recognizable faces, and soon, beloved celebrities. The age of the movie star had begun. And as Hollywood itself was being born, beginning with simple productions like In Old California, the foundations of an entirely new kind of fame were quietly taking shape. The production of In Old California was simple by modern standards. There were no elaborate sound stages or complex equipment trucks. Griffith and his crew filmed almost entirely outdoors, using the natural landscape as their backdrop. The actors had traveled west with the production team, bringing their costumes and theatrical experience with them. Scenes were staged in the open air, with the California sun providing the essential light needed for the cameras to capture each frame. The shoot moved quickly. To the Biograph crew, In Old California was simply one more project in a busy schedule of silent films. No one on set thought they were making history. There were no grand speeches, no sense of launching a new industry, no hint that the quiet farmland around them would one day become the most famous filmmaking center on Earth. For the villagers of Hollywood, it was likely just a curious event, a handful of performers and technicians briefly passing through town with strange equipment and dramatic costumes.
What in the world is all that? Look at the big camera!
Just passing through, folks, nothing to worry about.
Well, I'll be. Never seen the like. They're leaving!
And when the filming was finished, the crew packed their cameras, gathered their actors, and moved on. The orchards remained. The village returned to its calm routine. But something had quietly begun. Without knowing it, that small group of filmmakers had taken the first step in transforming a rural settlement into the future capital of world cinema. Legal pressure. At the time, the American motion picture industry was tightly controlled by a powerful organization known as the Motion Picture Patents Company, often called simply the MPPC. The group was dominated by inventor Thomas Edison, whose patents covered many of the essential technologies used in filmmaking. The MPPC controlled the cameras. They controlled the projectors. They required filmmakers to pay licensing fees just to produce and distribute movies, and companies that refused to cooperate often found themselves facing lawsuits. For many independent filmmakers, this system felt suffocating. Creative freedom came with legal risk, and production could be interrupted by patent investigators and court battles. So, some filmmakers made a bold decision and left for California. Every problem brings along an opportunity.
This is it. Board the train.
To California. We're really doing this.
All aboard! Safe journey!
The reels are secure.
Goodbye, New York. On to California.
Movement was slower, more difficult, and easier to avoid. Southern California became a kind of frontier for independent filmmakers, much like the American West had once been for pioneers seeking opportunity.
Like the pioneers of earlier centuries, filmmakers came seeking freedom. Quietly migrating to new pastures, they looked for new opportunities.
And there was another advantage. Mexico was only a short journey away. If legal pressure became too intense, production companies could quickly cross the border and continue working beyond the reach of patent enforcement.
Good. We're clear.
This combination of sunlight, open landscapes, and legal breathing room helped create something unique in California. An independent filmmaking culture. Directors, producers, and actors began gathering in this far western corner of the country, experimenting with new techniques and new ways of telling stories. Hollywood was not yet a dream factory, but the foundations of that dream were already being laid. By the middle of the 1910s, moviegoers had begun recognizing their favorite actors from film to film. They remembered faces. They talked about them. They returned to theaters hoping to see certain performers again. Studios quickly realized something powerful. People were not only coming to watch the story, they were coming to watch the stars. And so a new system was born, the Hollywood star system. Suddenly, actors were no longer anonymous figures. Their names were printed on posters. Their photographs appeared in newspapers and magazines. Studios began promoting them as personalities, building public fascination around their lives both on and off the screen. Some of the earliest icons of this new era became legends almost overnight. Charlie Chaplin, with his bowler hat, cane, and unforgettable comic timing, captured the hearts of audiences around the world. Mary Pickford became known as America's sweetheart, her warmth and charm making her one of the most beloved figures in early cinema. Douglas Fairbanks dazzled audiences with his athletic heroism and adventurous spirit, becoming the embodiment of swashbuckling Hollywood excitement. As their popularity grew, so did their influence. Studios began paying enormous salaries to secure their talent. Advertising campaigns revolved around their names. Publicity departments carefully crafted their images for the growing mass audience. Hollywood was no longer just a place where films were made. It had become something much larger. A publicity engine, a dream factory, a place where personalities could become global icons. And as the village where in old California had once been quietly filmed transformed into the center of the film world, the power of celebrity became one of Hollywood's most defining creations.
Hollywood was no longer just a place where films were made. It had become something much larger. A publicity engine, a dream factory. A place where personalities could become global icons.
The main cast and their roles in old California included Frank Powell, Governor José Manuela, a wealthy and honorable Spanish official who later becomes the governor of California. In his youth, he loves Perdita, but steps aside when she chooses another man. Years later, he becomes responsible for judging the fate of her troubled son, creating the moral conflict at the center of the story. A Corner in Wheat, a famous early Griffith drama criticizing greed and monopolies. The Sealed Room, a historical drama inspired by the legend of a nobleman who walls up his wife and her lover. The Country Doctor, a touching Griffith drama about duty and sacrifice. The Hessian Renegades, a Revolutionary War story about betrayal and patriotism. Marion Leonard, Perdita Arguello, the central female character of the film. She falls in love with and marries the charming but irresponsible musician Cortez. As years pass, she realizes her mistake when her husband becomes abusive and their son follows a troubled path. Near death, she asks the governor to help her son become an honorable soldier. Notable later films featuring Marion Leonard: The Country Doctor. Although slightly earlier than in Old California, this Griffith drama became one of her most remembered performances. She plays the doctor's wife, caught in an emotional story about duty and sacrifice. The Sealed Room, a historical drama in which she appears in a courtly romance set in a medieval palace, typical of Griffith's early experiments with dramatic storytelling. The Hessian Renegades, a Revolutionary War drama where she plays a patriot caught in conflict during the American Revolution. The Mender of Nets, a romantic drama set among coastal fishing communities. Leonard portrays a woman caught in a love triangle. The Mothering Heart, one of Griffith's emotionally powerful dramas. Leonard appears in a story centered on love, betrayal, and maternal devotion. Arthur V. Johnson, Cortez, a village troubadour and musician who wins Perdita's heart. Initially charismatic and admired by the town's women, he later becomes a drunk and irresponsible husband. His moral decline shapes the tragic arc of the story and influences the fate of his son. Henry B. Walthall, Perdita's son, the 19-year-old son of Perdita and Cortez. Like his father, he becomes involved in drinking and petty crime. Governor Manuela tries to reform him by placing him in the military, but the young man continues to steal from fellow soldiers.
You can't prove anything, Governor. The thefts end now. You join the army.
The army? That's your reform? It will make you a man of honor.
Or give me new pockets to pick.
To spare Perdita heartbreak before she dies, the governor temporarily presents him as a decorated hero. Other supporting performers. Early biograph films often used large ensembles of actors, many appearing in small or background roles. Additional performers included As the young film industry continued to grow in California, another powerful event, far beyond Hollywood, would change the balance of cinema across the world. In 1914, the world was plunged into the devastation of the First World War.
For Serbia! This demands retribution. Mobilize the armies. Yes, sir! For the Kaiser!
Before World War I, Europe was the home for filmmaking. In France, Italy, and Germany, early pioneers captured history on film. These motion pictures documented a world on the brink of change.
France, Italy, and Germany were leading forces in early cinema, creating influential films and shaping the artistic language of the medium. Europe stood at the very center of the motion picture world. But war changed everything. As the conflict spread across the continent, the film industries of Europe were deeply affected. Studios were damaged or destroyed. Film equipment and raw materials became scarce. Many actors, directors, and technicians were drawn into military service. National priorities shifted towards survival, and war production and filmmaking slowed dramatically. While Europe struggled through years of destruction and uncertainty, something very different was happening thousands of miles away in California. The American film industry kept growing. Hollywood studios continued producing films at an extraordinary pace. With the war taking place overseas, American companies faced far fewer disruptions. Cameras kept rolling, actors kept performing, and theaters across the United States remained filled with eager audiences. But American filmmakers were thinking beyond their own borders. With European production reduced, international markets suddenly needed films, and Hollywood was ready to provide them. American studios began exporting their movies across the world, sending reels of Hollywood productions to theaters in Europe, Latin America, and beyond. Audiences everywhere discovered the stories, the stars, and the cinematic style emerging from Southern California. By the early 1920s, the transformation was undeniable. Hollywood had become the dominant force in global film. The small village where in Old California had been quietly filmed just a decade earlier was now the heart of the most powerful movie industry on Earth. The first Hollywood shot film in Old California, 1910, was not premiered in Hollywood itself. Like most films of that era produced by the American Mutoscope and Biograph Company, it was released through the company's distribution network and shown in Nickelodeons and movie theaters across the United States starting March 10, 1910. The film's earliest screenings took place in Biograph-affiliated theaters in New York, where the studio was based at the time. Early Biograph films typically premiered in New York Nickelodeons and vaudeville houses before being circulated nationwide. Because short films in 1910 were usually part of mixed programs, several short films on one reel or program, a single, official premiere theater was rarely recorded. Instead, films like In Old California were released simultaneously to multiple theaters through distributors.
In Old California is starting soon. It's a D.W. Griffith production.
How exciting. I heard it's part of a mixed program.
Yes, several short films on one reel.
Important later screening. After being considered lost for decades, the rediscovered film was publicly screened again in 2004 at the Beverly Hills Film Festival, marking its first public showing in 94 years.
After being considered lost for decades, the rediscovered film was publicly screened again in 2004 at the Beverly Hills Film Festival, marking its first public showing in 94 years.
What began as a simple silent short beneath the California sun had become the opening chapter in a story that would reshape entertainment across the world. A journey of 1,000 miles had begun with a single first step.